one of the epistles, you're going to start each sermon with a story about Jesus. This week, we're going to start with a story told by Jesus that I'm pretty sure everybody here knows. Almost everybody at home, I'm sure, has heard before. The story of the Good Samaritan. You know how it goes. You know how it leads to the Samaritan discovering the person who's been beaten and needs help. And so there in Luke 10, we get to this point where it says, and when he saw him, the person beaten by the side of the road, he was moved with pity. What's the word that shows up for pity there in the Greek? Another version of that splagna word. The bowels of mercy. He's moved with pity. He feels it in his gut. He feels it in his heart. And what does he do? Does he stop there at the being moved? No. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. And then he put him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. Simple message that I want us to take from this. Compassion's going to cost you something when you do it. Compassion, pity, mercy, it's more than just being moved emotionally. It follows with action. It follows with meeting the need that you see. And I can't imagine any needs that aren't going to cost some bit of time or some bit of talent or skill or some kind of treasure. Compassion is going to cost you something. So this brings us to what we just read in this letter that John has written, 1 John. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his sibling in need, yet closes his bowels of mercy, closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? And again, the word we have there for heart is splagna. We talked last week, and I think it's worth reviewing. On the right top there, I've got the Hebrew for compassion, which its etymology comes from, it derives from the idea of being in the womb, which is in the bowels, and is about more than just a feeling. It's about wrapping around with care. It's about meeting a need. That's our understanding of compassion when we are seeking to follow Jesus Christ. And just like that idea of being in the womb, compassion's gonna cost you something. It's going to cost maybe a little bit or a lot, but it's more than just a feeling that we have and we walk away. Now, I want to show this again from last week just to compare the idea of sympathy and empathy and compassion. Here we have a deep hole. Someone is stuck down at the bottom of the hole. The person at the top is saying, I'm so sorry that you are in this hole. He's feeling something. They're feeling something, but there's nothing that's being done. That's sympathy. Empathy is now the person who was at the top of the hole is down at the bottom of the hole and is saying, oh, it's so dark down here. How are you coping? That's empathy. They're feeling it, but there's not yet the move to helping. And talked last week about the danger of that leading to burnout, because empathy without a plan to help can leave you in the hole with the person that you are helping. But compassion is like this. Someone's down in that deep, dark hole, and you're moved by their dilemma, and the part of your brain that gets activated is the part that says, how do I help you? How can I help you to meet your need? Instead of just jumping down in the hole with them, there's some problem solving that goes on. Compassion's gonna cost you something, and the cost has to be figured out. it matters. Last week, I talked about the idea of how in church settings, we've come into the habit of thinking that, well, the action of caring is something that the paid minister does, and how we've forgotten our Methodist roots. This church here, this building, 18-something, Methodist church, been around for over a century. And when the Methodists first settled here and established a church, they didn't have a minister on the payroll. The minister would just travel through to a number of different Methodist settlements, on a horse probably, and would help with sacraments. Pastoral care happened because the members were gathered together in small groups, and they met together, and they provided mutual support. And those small groups were part of elders' districts, and there was an elder whose job it was to keep an eye on the well-being of people. Pastoral care in our tradition has never been something that a specialist does on your behalf. And as the years have gone by, as we try cramming everything into 1 hour on Sunday morning, I'll get my worship on Sunday morning, I'll get my pastoral care on Sunday morning, I'll get my teaching on Sunday morning, etc., etc. We got rid of elders, we got rid of classes and groups, and we wonder why, as a tradition, whether it's the United Church of Canada or the Presbyterian Church, why we're dying. You can do worship with all kinds of excellence, but without spiritual care that's done by lay people, you're going to die. You can do, we have so many United Churches that boast about the outreach that they do, but they die because there's no mutual care. So we talked about that last week. This week, I want to talk more about that difference between outreach ministry, the valuable ministry of caring for people in the community who are not part of this fellowship, but we go out in the community and we provide for their needs. That's outreach, and that is an essential part of our ministry. But pastoral care is what we do with one another here. And believe it or not, it can be more difficult to do, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a relationship. When we provide care to people out in the community as outreach, we don't have a relationship with those people. It's easier for us to give some care. Here's a meal, here's some support, here's some advocacy, but then we can walk away. Don't have to have a deep relationship. Sometimes, and this is a confession, sometimes caring for others, meeting their needs, is actually a way to keep some distance from them. Here, let me help you, but I don't want to have a relationship with you. Pastoral care can be a challenge because you have a relationship with one another. That relationship involves rituals. We just went through one where we made a promise to care for, to be in a relationship. It's difficult to both receive care and to give it inside of a family because it comes packaged with emotional closeness. And sometimes we like our care distant. The work of the compassionate care team, as I mentioned before, is not one where we can get away with, hey, let me refer to someone else to respond to someone's need. It's not one where we can, hey, someone else do it, and I can have a feeling, but I can remain distant. As I said last week, if you approach the compassionate care team with a concern, their response is going to be, How can I help you complete your splancha? How can I help you complete the move from feeling for the person in need and you finding a ladder to go down and help them out of that hole? Trying to find a movie to make the point that I think most people are familiar with, Good Will Hunting. It's a story, it's got Matt Damon in it. He's a math prodigy. He's from the wrong side of the tracks in Boston. And he surprises a math professor, the one on the left, Professor Lambeau, by solving an equation. And Lambeau decides he's going to take this young man under his wings and help him. But as the movie unfolds, we realize that Professor Lambeau, he's not interested in a relationship. And because he's not interested in a relationship in the way he delivers care, the care ends up being self-serving and manipulative. And we contrast that with the relationship that Sean McGuire, the therapist, provides, who is not interested in simply helping this young man to be a better mathematician. He wants to have a relationship because he knows it's in the relationship that caring can reach its fullness. And that's the story of Jesus Christ. That is why in this passage we read, it's saying, if you got worldly goods and you see someone in need, but you close down your bowels of mercy and don't offer any help, where in the world is Christ in that? How does God's love abide in you if you can do a Professor Lambeau? If you can give, but I don't want the relationship. You know it's true. When you care for someone, when you provide them with care, you end up getting to know them. You end up getting to know them deeply. And that comes with all kinds of costs. Compassion is going to cost you something. We grow spiritually when we talk about being a follower of Jesus Christ. What we're talking about is becoming more Christ-like. And these are the 5 things that we do so we can be more Christ-like. We come together and we worship God. What we're talking about today, we support one another. We do outreach, we serve others in the world. We learn about God, we share our faith out in the world. To be a follower of Jesus Christ includes our care for one another in this fellowship. It makes the fellowship stronger, which strengthens God's mission in the world. Let me end with this. If you're looking for a really accessible way of absorbing that verse that I read, this is a translation by Eugene Peterson, The Message. And what we just read is captured beautifully in this reading, and we'll close with this. This is how we've come to understand and experience love. Christ sacrificed his life for us. And this is why we ought to live sacrificially for our fellow believers and not just be out for ourselves. If you see some brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it, but turn a cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears. And you made it disappear.